right, April wrap-up time. It was very good, not great. Like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad month. It's just that, like, I had so many 4-star reads. I don't think I had anything below a 4-star, but I didn't have anything above a 4.5 star. I did have one DNF, and a lot of the 4 stars were, like, this close to 3.5. Like, we were flirting with it. Like, if I did quarter stars, we have a lot of 3.75s. And for me, my average rating is a 4. I know a lot of people are like, 3 is an average rating. Well, that's just not how my rating scale works. Fight me. I don't know. So for me, reading a lot of what I deem to be good, standard, this is good stuff, but nothing exceptional or great, or things that just make me want to read, makes me bummed, especially after the high that was March. But that said, there are no losers here for the most part. I mean, we'll start from maybe most disappointing to best, maybe, I don't know. I've written down the books. I read 9, I DNF'd 1, so we'll start with the DNF service model. I just think I have an issue with Adrian Tchaikovsky's verbosity. He loves words. He uses so many words to say so little. And not in a bad way. Like, I actually think he's one of those authors that's really accessible, a lot like Brandon Sanderson, where his prose aren't in the way. At least in his science fiction work, I have not read his fantasy, okay? So I have no idea what he's like in his fantasy space, but also, like Brandon Sanderson, incredibly prolific. And I think the way that he chooses to write maybe helps him with that. But it also means that, like, and, like, I'm not an editor, and a lot of people like his works, but especially, like, in Service Model, which is kind of thematically a part of it, and right now I'm in Alien Clay, we spend, like, a paragraph saying what we could say in 2 sentences. But, like, for me, it's actually really easy for me to write more than I should. Like, if I have to write a paper for a class or prepare anything that's written, I then have to pare it down because it's easier for me to word vomit than it is for me to make it tight. And I think he isn't very good at making it tight, and it's not like, for me, these other sentences are interesting. So consistently, I don't dislike the idea of the projects, but I'm in my 4th Adrian Tchaikovsky, and every single one, including a novella, I have gone, why is there more to this? Why is this still going? Why is this so long? Like, the novella is 200 pages. That's too long. So I think I have this issue. And he, at least in the science fiction, focuses on the ideas a lot. And some of the ideas I find interesting. Some of them I actively disagree with his conclusion. And then some of them I'm like, you aren't approaching it from a way I find very fascinating. So I'm just kind of also bored here. So, and he doesn't really do character work that much, although, like, at least of the 4 I've read, I know he's written so much. But Alien Clay, I'm sort of getting a character, but he's mostly just a vessel for thematic verbosity. So yeah, we'll see if I DNF Alien Clay. But I DNF Service Model because I was bored and I didn't find it funny. And when I looked online at reviews, the people who loved it found it funny. Now, that said, I think it's actually kind of a fun premise. I think it's really accessible and engaging for some people. Like, I'm going to give it to my mother to read. I think my mom's going to cackle at this book. She's like a release engineer in the software space. I think she's going to find it a very funny time. For me, I just didn't find it funny. Like, this is not my humor. But, like, there was the Sanderson book that I really didn't like, that I knew she would find hysterical, and I was correct. So, there's definitely a reader for this book. It's just not me. I think this one, it's not my most disappointing, but, like, I was really hoping for a 5-star experience, and it was more of a 4-star experience, and this is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. And it has nothing to do with the Rye Sand stuff that I complained about in the Friday Reads, which I hold that the reason why it feels jarring is not that it's a pop culture reference, is that it's a pop culture reference used in a way we do not use it. Like, we do not refer to people as fictitious book boyfriends. That's not how it works. We refer to people as maybe characters that have been played in a live action, or maybe the actor who played that character. But that's my headcanon there. But the reason why I think Say You'll Remember Me didn't really work for me is I've had my fair share of long-distance relationships, and I don't like them. And this is about maneuvering a long-distance relationship. And I just found that more bittersweet than fun. And I tend to like reading Abby Jimenez for the fun. Or, like, every other book, the characters are just always together, and there is this other thing that, like, will cause them to break apart. And here, it was always, I just was being reminded viscerally of all the times that I would be sad when I had to wait and count down the days to see my partner. And I just didn't like that. It was not a fun memory. That said, opening part of the book with the first date, so good. So good. And I actually think she did, personally from my experience, did a really good job showing an like authentic American Mexican family that's not like overtly Mexican, like they are Mexican, but like for example, when I met our main character, right away I clocked, I think you're Latina. And it wasn't because she was saying weird things, like she was acting like me. Like if you meet me, you don't necessarily know I'm Latina because I don't like have a lot of markers. But like there were some things where I'm just like, you're not talking about, like there were just some things that I'm just like, this makes me feel like you were this. And then I do find out her parents, or at least one of her parents, is Mexican. And so like I thought that family work and those family dynamics, they felt authentic to me and my lived experiences. And I'm always happy when people choose to just genuinely do things like that. Now, some people, they won't relate to this, like it's just definitely not a one size fit all. But like for me, I appreciated that. So I liked this. I wanted to like be like new 5-star Abby Jimenez, but that was not it. And I think it wasn't because she's suddenly a worse writer. It's just that the actual tropes and premise make me sad. So I don't want to be sad. I wanted to be happy. And the happily ever after, I don't think counteracted how sad I was in the middle, if that makes sense. Another one that I was hoping to love, but is only a 4-star, is Asunder. And I think Asunder is only a 4-star and not a 3.5 because this world is very cool. And also the characters started connecting a bit more, and I like got very into like 2 of the characters' dynamics. But like this was a lot of work for me to get through, and that usually means if it's work, it's below 4 stars. It's like 3.5, which means it's still really good. This definitely is a book that begs for a sequel. Like I want a sequel, I will be reading the sequel. So it's not like I'm so disappointed that I'm not going to pick up the next book. No, I require the next book, especially because I think a lot of my character connection issues may be resolved, may not be, who's to say. This is a very like interesting world. It had a pantheon that was there, but now we have a new pantheon, and our main character can talk, like is a death speaker, and kind of has this like Faustian deal she made with this like entity that we associate with evil, and like eventually, payment's gonna come due and she's trying to run away from it. And in the meantime, accidentally ties her soul to another person's soul and needs to try to get out of that. And it's kind of fun. And I like the group of people we pick up along the way. I think the side characters are actually where this shines. Our main character, gosh, can I even remember her name? Let me see, I have the book next to me. She was very reserved, and understandably so, if she comes by it honestly. Carice. And eventually she opens up a bit more, and that's like more enjoyable. Just especially since you're primarily in her head. Like, I don't think it's first person, but it's one of those third person limiteds, I feel, because like you're just primarily from her perspective. But she's so reserved, and she's like, just let me in. You don't have to let them in. Let me in. One of those things. So I had fun, but I kind of forgot I read it, and it was kind of a lot of work to read it, and I was just sad about that. I wanted to be one of the people who's like, yeah, hidden gem, one of my favorite reads. Everyone go read this. And like, you should still go read it, but it's not one of my new favorites, which was sad. Which is why I should never do anticipated like 5-star prediction things, because I'm bad at it. I am actively bad at knowing what'll be 5 stars, and then I just feel bummed. Let's see. I think the rest, though, kind of met or exceeded expectations, or I had no expectations or anything like that. So let's continue on with another book I read, because it was on the Nebula list, was Someone You Can Build a Nest In, which was a solid 4-star read. It was kind of also dipping to 3.5 stars because I was just kind of bored with it. I don't know why. I was just not very connected to what was happening or the stakes of the situation. But then at around like the 67% mark, a thing happens, like a reveal, and I'm like, that's interesting. I'm interested in this. And then the falling action of the book is like, mwah. I love the falling action of the book. So a slight reveal at the end and the falling action together raised it back up to a 4. This is the premise. We have our monster, who is like essentially a shapeshifter, like doesn't have their own bones or organs, acquires what they get from their food or things in their environment. And she gets woken up early in her hibernation, has to run away, stumbles upon this person, and then all of a sudden gets this biological urge to procreate with them, with which her species involves putting eggs in someone. And what's interesting is, first, I think this is a selling point for some people. This is a romance, but it's asexual for the most part. So if you are looking for that and you want it from the perspective of the monster, this is a very unique experience. This is also a book that is going to handle and graphically handle someone who's been through physical and emotional abuse in their family. And that's rough. And like you do have someone in their corner. It's not our main character. The monster, well, it inadvertently is, but not really. It's mostly a different person. And that's just tough. It's just tough. It's tough to see what systems have been forced into her head, how she like interacts with the things around her, how small she makes herself be. And so in some ways it's really healing watching this monster help her through it. And there's never really any tension between our love interests. There's never like this third act breakup or anything like that. Like you get nervous throughout the book because you're like, oh no, what's going to happen if blank? But there's no tension there. The tension is all in, wow, this family is messed up. Wow. So like I enjoyed thematically what was happening. I just think I wish I didn't know it was labeled a monster romance. I think that's my thing here in terms of expectations game, is I wish I just knew it was a fantasy book. And then I would have read it more with that in mind, because I just kept waiting for it to be more like these two characters and they're going to have banter or something. Like, it's not like that. Like, it is about their interpersonal relationship and their connection. But in terms of the tropes and the pacing I associate with romance, I wasn't set up for success. So I kind of wish I just had no expectations and I just kind of went into it and just let it be what it is, which is a very compelling story about, I don't know, letting go of your traumas and finding out your worth and forming connections with somebody else who has their own issues and then forming a life together. I don't know. And I kind of wish it was less action-packed. I really loved the quiet moments at the end. I loved them. So yeah, it was pretty good. Let's see. Wings Upon Her Back, another book that discusses trauma and abuse and abusive relationships. I think the biggest discussion point we had for this in our Patreon, because it was a Patreon buddy read, was that this should have been smaller in scope or smaller in number of pages. It was too much for what it wanted to be. Thematically, I loved it. The main character's journey is astounding to watch. You get dual timelines. This is a very cool world, too. Like, if you like a techie fantasy sci-fi world, like, I don't even know what genre I'm really putting this in. I think it's probably more science fiction than fantasy, but it depends. Do you take it from the perspective of you, the reader, or the characters in the story? Hard to say. I think that's another thing, though, is, like, you're not really going to get to learn about the world other than what you get to see around you, like the history of the world. That's not a thing you're going to really learn about in much detail. Like, you'll learn a little bit, enough to, like, keep you intrigued if you're like me and like bumbling about, but you're not gonna like get to know. It also, like, it's a rebellion story, and I desperately wished it could do whatever it was doing not in that framework, mainly because it was trying to be too big in doing rebellion. So we have to meet our rebellion characters that besides our main characters, we don't flesh them out. I remember none of their names. I don't know them. They all felt the same. I was trying to differentiate them by traits of, like, this is the mean one. This is the nice one. I think she's also the techie one. Like, it was just traits. It wasn't people. So I think there was, like, in her acknowledgments, she mentioned how, like, as she kept editing it, it kept getting smaller and smaller. Like, yes, I wish you did do the story that was this small form you've teased to me in the acknowledgments. Because I think the journey of our main character, and I can't say her name because these are fantasy sci-fi names that just, like, they don't click in my head, so I can't. It starts with a Z, like Xenia. I think her name's Xenia in one part because she has a different, like, growing up name than her adult name. And it's about how she deals with a new worldview and learning about what she's actually been through and taking the next step. So The Wings Upon Her Back, like, is a beautiful title. Like, it's so good. So I think there's actually a lot that's really lovely in here. Like, the things I love, I adore. And it actually read really fast. It didn't overstay its welcome. I was really, like, this was one of my commute reads, and I was, like, really excited to get in the car and read it. I just lost steam when it was more about the rebellion and less about this character's journey. And I wish it had been tighter. That's what I want. Like, I see the story I want in here, and that's what I want. Speaking of a book that also did something very similar, where it's like, oh, you were so close to giving me what I want, but you had your own agenda. That's The City and the City, which was another Patreon buddy read we did. Oh man, The City and the City. I really liked this. Like, this was the last book I basically read this month, I think full novel. And I read it all weekend, and I was just really excited to be reading it all the time, because, like, you know how I just love to bumble around in a world? This is a world. And I even hesitate to tell you too much about it, because a lot of the fun I had was like, so what is this place? What are the rules? What are we doing? Like, I was just... And the way it's just such a direct analogy, metaphor, way of exploring how we set up city designs, what we choose to see and ignore. Discussions about different places that do have contentious borders that we have had and continue to have throughout history. I mean, the most difficult one, like right now to just consume in the news because of how horrendous the acts are, is the Palestine state and Israel. Like, even before now, if you read about the history about how some of these cities are set up within these two interspersed cultures, it's just like, what? How is this functional? And so all of these types of ideas, like how when you walk in a city and you ignore homeless people, or maybe you ignore the buildings that are broken down, how you can have a city and a city. So obviously all of these things that we do exist with, how we can explore that in this book is really interesting, but I also don't think the book really wanted to go there. What the book wanted to be and what the book is an investigative mystery. That's what it is. And I think I would have been okay with that if our main character actually gave us any insight into his opinions on where he lives. Whether the opinions are, yeah, I like living here, or no, I think this is weird and messed up. I have no sense of really how this person feels. And I think it is meant to be so that we can be the investigator and we can have our own opinions. But I think I could have been more content, because I didn't want this to be a rebellion story. And it's largely not. It's largely about this investigator who is trying to solve the murder of this individual and what he uncovers as he tries to discover this murder. And in the meantime, through this investigator doing his thing, we just get to see this weird place. It also has the quirk, we're not going to call it a problem, it's a feature, it's not a bug, but it bothers me sometimes, where it uses our normal words in completely weird context. I took a sentence from the book, it's from chapter 2, and I put in the Discord, I swear I know English, but what does this sentence mean? And it's because they used words like the word total in a completely different context, so it wasn't used in a part of a sentence that made sense. And I was just like, my brain has reread this sentence 3 times because I swear I should understand it. But no, I wasn't given context clues or definitions yet to understand that sentence. So it's that type of drop-in-it world building, a la Nine Fox Gambit, Malazan, things like that. But I generally really enjoyed it. I'm excited to read more by this author because, bare minimum, the way he creates a space to explore, I'm in. And like I said, I think the story is what the story wants it to be. I just wanted a different story because I'm like, but I want to play in this world. I want to do other things. You're telling me we're just solving a murder and maybe uncovering stuff. And it's another one where it's like, oh, did I want to know the history of how we got here? Nope, that is not a thing. No, we do not learn the history. It's not about the history. But man, did I want to. I wanted to. And I don't think that's the point. That doesn't mean it wasn't leaving me wanting. It was almost a 4.5 star read. So this is a high 4. This one's a high 4. It was very good. And a pleasant surprise. I really didn't know what to expect from it and how engaged it would make me feel. But I had a good time. And I've now put it on Ryan's radar because I'm like, I bet you'll really like this. I bet this is kind of your thing. And it's only 300 pages. And I guess let's just finish up talking about Patreon buddy read things. I finally finished Broken Stars. This is a short story anthology. I did DNF 2 of the larger stories in here because I'm trying to channel my friend Shannon, who can DNF a short story on a dime, and I am jealous of that. I never know when I can DNF a short story. But I think I was largely right because I actually enjoyed the rest of them that I finished. My instincts is that this is a 4-star collection, which is a really good for an anthology. An anthology has some misses, it has some hits. It definitely gave me a good flavoring of what people are playing around with in the science fiction space in China. I enjoyed a lot of the stories. I don't know what my standout is. Let's see if I can pull up the Broken Stars in front of me. I'm playing around with the idea of doing a tier ranking of these stories for myself to get a sense of it. But as of right now, what is my favorite? All right, so in terms of flash fiction or really short, The New Year Train was very fun. I enjoyed that. That one was so quick, but it was one of those fun little physics thought experiments that I just they tickle my fancy. I love those. It reminds me of like a Ted Chiang, kind of like the Entropy short story he has. Reflection and Brain Box I thought were actually pretty fun. The first Emperor's Game, it just sticks with me. It's so funny. I just thought that was really enjoyable. And then at the start of it, I did not like Moonlight. Nope, that was not a favorite. Broken Stars came out of left field. That was a weird one. What Has Passed Shall in Kinder Light Appear, I thought was a fascinating framework of like starting in our now. Time does still move forward, but as we move forward, the events of the past are happening. And I just thought that was cool. So I'm glad I read this. It's still long for me. It does confirm that I really like anthologies to be like 300 pages. Because my brain hates having unfinished books. It's a toxic thing, but my brain hates it. All right, so that's all the Patreon buddy read stuff. Speaking of buddy reads, I buddy read The Roundhouse with Mara from Books Like Whoa. For her, it is a perfect book. For me, it's a very good book. It's very good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This is a coming-of-age story paired with a mystery-ish. Like, the point of the story isn't to figure out who's done it, but that is the motivating factor for our main character. So it's one of those things where I felt like, as a reader, I was not reading it because I cared about the mystery. But my main character cared about the mystery, and that pushed him through the world. And then I was just seeing his interactions with his community, with his family, growing up, what he cared about. And I really enjoyed that with Joe. And I just got so mad at the end. The ending hurts me so much. I get very emotional about this book. This book is about a boy whose mother is assaulted and doesn't tell anyone who did it. She knows who did it. She knows why they did it. She doesn't want to talk about it. She's not coping with it well initially, understandably so. And then his dad's not coping with it well. He's like, has a relationship to justice and the law because he's a judge. And these are all Indigenous individuals living on a reservation. And it's basically because of this setup, these adults are adults. They're not doing great. They're trying to cope. They're trying to find control. They're trying to find healing and peace. And in the meantime, we have this like 13, 12-year-old and his friends doing weird shit, being like, well, they want to find control. In their head, control is figuring out who did this and making them pay. What does that look like from the perspective of a really young kid? And so along the way, we get to learn a lot about them. But on a whole, they were left unsupervised in a way that I blame the adults in the story for. And it's not like their fault for being human, but we end up where we are because these young boys were left unsupervised. And it makes me sad. Makes me so sad. But there's so many poignant conversations in here, so many great themes. And Louise Erdrich just always knows how to make me feel in her stories. Like, she'll bring up things that I'm like, yeah, I get that. I know that feeling. I know that description. And sometimes they feel so mundane, but I'm so grounded in it. Like, we open up with Joe weeding, like, tree sprouts in, I think, the front of the house. I'm like, yeah, right now I'm fighting the stupid chive onions in my yard. Like, you know, that those tedious tasks you do as a kid, that feeling you get when you get to come home early and no one's home yet, and you have those 2 hours between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock before your parents get home. Like, there were just so many little things. I loved that these boys are absolute nerds. They love Star Trek and Star Wars, and I just adored that. These are people. These are actual people in my head, and that's why I love reading Louise Erdrich. I love communities. I love people, and I think I'm mad at this community because they dropped the ball. They dropped it. They dropped it hard, and I'm mad at them still. Which is how you know she's a great author. Because it's been like weeks since I've read this book, but I'm like, A book that's inspired by a coming-of-age story, but is not a coming-of-age story, is James. This is another one I read because it got rave reviews last year, and I finally got the audiobook, and I knew I wanted to do this audiobook because I suspected it would be in dialect, and I like listening to dialect. My brain is not good at making dialect. It's a very lazy brain, unfortunately, and I was right because there are many dialects between like slave talk and like how James normally talks. And so yeah, Huckleberry Finn, reframing, retelling. It's hard for me to tell how true it is to the original because it's been literally like 15 years since I've read Huckleberry Finn, and I didn't enjoy it when I read it. I liked it, but traveling journey stories, it's still not my favorite. And it was also just really sad because, yeah, it's a James running away as a slave, and yeah, it's not great. It's not happy. And the ending was okay. I guess the ending is fine. Like, I felt very whelmed reading this. Like, it wasn't bad, but I didn't feel like I was enjoying my time. And not that the book wants me to enjoy it, but I just wasn't engaged with it. Partially because I don't like journey stories. I just don't enjoy them. Like, I don't like that we're going from place to place and then we meet new people and we are in a new situation that we then have to exit to get to them. I find that jarring. I don't enjoy it. And, like, I like the conceit that James is a very different character that we knew in Huckleberry Finn. I think that's great. But I think also this kind of leans into the retellings trope of retelling a classic tale, whether that's a Greek mythology or a different religious story or this kind of classic American text, from the perspective of a character we haven't heard from before, is not really interesting to me most of the time. Even the ones I do like, I like it for other reasons. And so, yeah, and I think I really just don't love the twist at the end. Is it a twist? There's a reveal at the end of this. I don't think I like it. I don't know. I think it's fine. I think I'm supposed to have an opinion about it, and maybe that's why it annoys me. Because I'm like, I think I'm supposed to be shocked in this moment. I think I'm supposed to feel a certain way. The story feels the same to me whether this reveal exists or it doesn't exist, which means I don't know how I feel about it. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Maybe it's a lower rating than I thought. I thought I gave it a 4. Maybe it is like a 3.5. Alas. And then the last one, or is that it? Nope, the last one. And actually, this is my favorite of the month. I think this is my favorite of the month. Yeah, we're ending on a high note. Buffalo Hunter Hunter. This was very good. Oh, man. Now, I have been seeing people talk about this, and they're not being as careful as I was in my Friday reads, which makes me feel like I don't need to be that careful. I'll start really vague, and I'll let you know when I reveal anything that's not in the front flap. But it's not that big a deal, in my opinion, because it wasn't like I went, oh my god, I didn't see it. Like, I think it gets revealed, like, super early what we're doing here. So this is like a story within a story within a story. These are all journal entries. So we have someone from 2013, 2015-ish, reading journals from her great-great-grandfather, who is also then telling the story of someone who comes to his church, who is indigenous, wears sunglasses. His name is Goodstab, and he has a fascinating story to tell, an outlandish story, a story he is convinced this pastor is going to believe by the time he is done. And right away, you also know this pastor is nervous. And you don't know why he's nervous. You don't have context for it. So we have this man in Montana having this strange individual who he also has prejudice against. This pastor likes to pretend he's holier than thou, but you can tell he feels like he's superior to this indigenous man, as is the way of the 1800s, right? Well, I guess it's the 1900s. This is 1912. And so it's about 100 years before this ancestor's reading this journal, that he's writing this story that he's hearing from Goodstab. And the story just kind of goes. And the pastor gets more nervous. And it's a very interesting story. I really enjoyed it. It's very slow. And I think some people think it doesn't read like Stephen Graham Jones. And what I think is it reads like when Stephen Graham Jones does like character voices. Each of these 3 characters is an individual voice. And they have different narrators in the audiobook. And the audiobook has like 10 out of 10 production. Like there are some moments where someone is talking into like a recorder and you have that transition. You have a moment where she's reading the journal and transitions into her grandfather's voice reading it. It's like, so good. So you have 3 voices for our 3 characters, which works really well because they all have their own brain chemistry. And you can really feel that on the page. How the pastor's obsession with food. Truly there. And I think it's so thematically rich. Something that I thought was a really interesting thing is you really get to see in real time. I don't think any other work by an indigenous author has really shown me the differences in naming conventions and language and like what that means for like brain chemistry and framing. Because if you've ever learned another language, you know that like languages are not just this word means this word. It's like how you talk also infers how you think and what you put importance on. And so when we meet Goodstab and Goodstab's naming all of these animals, he's not naming them with the names we would give them. And initially you're like the pastor and at least I'm like the pastor. Maybe you're not. Maybe you are better than me. You're like, man, why are we using these descriptive names? Aren't they kind of childish or something like that? And I don't think I thought that, but the pastor definitely thinks this is a childish way of being like I think there's some things that are just called like bighorns. But it's like, well, why wouldn't you name something after how you would describe it. Like, why wouldn't we do that? Why, like, in biology, whenever I teach it, I'm so happy when a biological word just describes what the thing is. So why is that more inferior? Why do we think it's simpler? The way that people get different names throughout their lives. So I thought that was, I think, subtle there. I don't think, it's not like a big thematic point, but it was something I was just thinking about as I have this pastor write the story of this Indigenous man and reflecting on it in his own journals. And then also Good Stab and how he changes his language over time and for his audience. I thought that was really interesting. Good Stab being kind of a metaphor of the compromises you make in a world that's trying to kill you and get rid of your culture, and what you have to do and sacrifice to remain who you are, and how sometimes that's a little cannibalistic in some ways. Like, this isn't about, like, cannibalism per se. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I'm trying to be vague about the supernatural thing in case you truly don't want to know what it is. But, like, I'm so happy this exists because there are other classic versions of this story where this is obviously inspired by. And I'm like, cool. I never really wanted to read that. Like, I've watched things inspired by that classic thing. And now I'm like, I don't feel the need to read that anymore. This is my perfect version of that narrative framework, thought experiment. It's odd. And like, I knew when I picked this up, this was revenge horror, and it's a revenge horror. Oh, and it gets, and for a lot of this, you're like, this is just suspenseful. And it's sad because it's about the 1800s and 1900s in Western America for Indigenous people. So not great. So you're reading it and you do feel the paranoia of the pastor. But then when he takes the gloves off and we go all in on the horror, I'm like, whoa, whoa. Even though I still hold some of the most horrifying things for me in this book have to do with the sacrifices Good Stab has to make. Because that was chilling to me, personally. And like any Stephen Graham Jones, if you have issues with visuals, there are visuals. Yeah, there are moments where even I visualized a thing. I was like, whoa, I was not anticipating that. You scared me. I've never been jump scared, but I got a little jump scared in this book. I was like, whoa, unanticipated. So yeah, and I guess as a disclaimer, I'm pretty sure none of the cats die. There are a couple cats and I was very nervous about them. None of the cats die, which is not the most important thing to know, but if you needed to know, the cats are okay. I got very nervous about the cats. Probably more than I should have been, if I'm being honest. All right, so that's my spoiler-free, like, this is really good. Like, maybe it'll become a higher rating, because it's got that great pairing of, like, genre camp, like, slow burn horror qualities paired with the thematic richness. And like, my only thing that docks it down is just sometimes I thought some sections were a bit long and paced a little unevenly, but obviously my brain's probably going to remember that less as time goes on. Okay, that's my April wrap up. I yammered for too long, so if you made it this far, let me know what your highlights were. What were your thoughts on any of these books? Do you think I should continue Alien Clay? To be honest, by the time you're seeing this video, I've already made that decision. But I'd love to just hear your opinions. I always like reading them. And if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know that you are here. Well, we've already done buffaloes. We've already done wings. Let's leave a city. Skyscraper sort of thing. You know, tall building. City stuff. And otherwise, like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.